In this video, you will learn how to send an email using your school Google account. Before we get started though, we're going to download an extension to help you with your spelling and grammar. To do so, go to chrome.google.com/webstore. Search for Grammarly. Today it's the first item in the list, but there's a good chance that for those of you who are watching this video at some point in the future, the extension might be somewhere else here. So if it is, just find it and then click Add to Chrome. Once the extension has been installed, it will open up a new tab. You can safely close this tab. To make sure it's installed correctly, look for a little green circle with a white line and arrow inside of it in the upper right-hand corner. Once you've verified that the extension has been installed correctly, go to gmail.com. Once you get here, click Sign In. You're going to sign in with your school account. That's my username, and then I need to follow it with apps.matsuk12.us. My password is the same one I normally use to log on to the computers with. The first thing we're going to do once we get into our email account is we're going to start working on the last thing you're going to see in your email, which is the signature. To do so, click on Settings and then scroll down until you see the Settings box. Be careful. If you scroll too far, you'll get to a vacation responder. We don't want to do anything for the vacation responder. We want to set up the signature. Because we just installed Grammarly, you're going to see a little notification the first time you click inside of a text box, and it's asking if we want to see how Grammarly works. For right now, just hit no thanks. Now I'm going to type my name. That's typically what you see at the end of an email that we use as a signature. Adults will often include additional information such as a phone number or perhaps even a title, a job title. So I would put in here computer teacher. I could put in where I work. I could put in my contact information. And I could even put in my web page. You guys don't want to share this kind of personal information so readily. So we're going to take that information out of your signatures. You just want to have your name. That way we can protect your privacy, protect your security. However, there is something that a lot of people like to do in addition to including all of that useful contact information, and it is to include a quote. So if you have a favorite quote, you could put it right here. Mine is God helps those who help themselves. Make sure you spell it correctly. You have proper grammar. Look it up if you need to make sure you put it in correctly. Because we're not including any other additional information, I'm going to put a dash right here and a space. That makes my signature look a little bit nicer when that's the only piece of information I'm including. Once you've done this, make sure you scroll down and you click Save Changes. If you don't, then all of the work you put into your signature will disappear. We're going to go back now into Settings, scroll back down to that text box, and in order to get credit for this portion of the assignment, you need to take a snapshot of it. To do so, go down to Cortana and just type snip and then new. And I'm going to put the box around this entire thing. And then click File, Save As, and you want to put it in your pictures right here. And I'm going to change the name to Signature. Remember where you put it. We're putting it in pictures so it'll be easy to find later. Now that we're done with that, we can go back down here and either click, well, here we can't save changes because we didn't make any, so I'll click Cancel. And now it's time to click on Compose. The first thing you need to do is put in the email address of one of your parents. I've actually added your parents' email addresses to your gradebook specifically for this assignment. To access those, open up a new tab, go to my web page, and click on Gradebook. Here on the second line, you should see at least one email you can use for this assignment. If you don't, just let me know and I will put one in for you. So I'm going to highlight this email. I'm going to hit Control C, or I can right click on it and hit copy. And then I'm going to go back to my message and put Control V for paste. Once you've started your email, you should know that if you don't finish it today, it's okay. You can simply click the X up here, and then you'll see over here in drafts, there's a little 1. That means you have one draft. If I click on that, you can see here's the email I started, and I can just pick up where I left off. So if you don't finish today, just click the X, and tomorrow when you come back to class, click on drafts and pick up right where you left off. The next step is to put in my email address, but we're going to put it in the CC field because you're not actually sending this email to me. You're just keeping me in the loop. You want me to be aware that you've sent this to your parents so that I can give you credit for what you're doing. You may be tempted to type in my name, and if you do, you'll see that my name pops up with an email address, actually my Gmail address. The problem with this email address is that I never check it, and most other teachers never check their Gmail accounts. Our school district has set up teachers with both an Outlook email account and a Gmail email account. You need to make sure that you send this email to my Outlook email account. To find my Outlook email, the best thing to do is go to matsuk12.us/tms. Now, I was just on my homepage where I had my email address. I'm showing you this way because now you'll be able to find email addresses for any member of our staff. By clicking on staff, and then directory, I guess, you'll see a list of all of our teachers with all of their email addresses. So to get mine, the easiest thing to do is to right click on it and click copy email address. This will minimize the likelihood that you accidentally type it incorrectly. Now I go to CC and I can either hit Control V or I can right click and hit paste. Notice the little Control plus V here. This is a reminder of what the key combination is in order to do the same thing that you get when you right click in a section. Notice how my Outlook email uses my name, michael.backus, instead of my username. And the part after the @ symbol doesn't have an apps like you guys have, or like my Gmail has. It's just at matsuk12.us. Now I'm going to put in a subject. And my subject is going to be my grade in computers class as of the 5th, as of November 5th, 2017. And I should put a comma right there. Make sure that you've done that. You've got the correct capitalization, the correct punctuation, the correct grammar when you put in your subject line. This is important when you're communicating with others. You want to make sure that they can tell that you're putting forth your best effort, that you're trying hard to uh, use correct punctuation, use correct spelling, use correct grammar. Otherwise, if this was to a potential employer, perhaps, they would look at your application and probably rate it a little bit lower. Once you have that, the next thing to do is you need to put in a greeting. Now, you could put in something like "Dear Mom" or "Hello Mom," but for now, we're just going to say "Mom." It's important to include a greeting just to make sure that the email comes across as polite as possible. The next step is you're going to let your parents know what this assignment is all about. So include a sentence that says something to the effect of, "Today I am learning how to send an email." Now, if you're doing well in my class, if you have anything above an A, I want you to include a sentence that says something to the effect of, "I am doing well in computers. I have an A." And then I want you to include something that lets your parents know what you've been learning in my class. You can choose what you share. For example, you could say, "I have learned to make apps," or "I have learned to program robots." Whatever you want, it's your choice. Now, if you're not doing so well in my class, if you have anything lower than an A, I want you to write something to this effect: "I have a 72% in computers." That is a C. Then you have to include two things you can do to bring up your grade. So you could type, "Two things I can do to bring up my grade are typing and code.org." Now, you'll notice that I made lots of mistakes in this last sentence, and Grammarly is telling me about it. You can see that things are underlined. So we're going to use Grammarly to help fix this. Here I can see that it's suggesting that I use the word "can," which is what I want to do. And then the I is being underlined because it should be capitalized. So I'm going to capitalize it. This should be bring. This should be grade. Here, typing is spelled with an I instead of a Y. There we go. And this should be and. Thanks to Grammarly, my email looks a lot more professional. But keep in mind, Grammarly isn't perfect. It does not tell us everything we need to do to make our emails grammatically correct. At the very beginning of this sentence, you can see that "to" is spelled with a lowercase t. That needs to be capitalized. Pay attention to those things and don't rely on Grammarly 100% of the time. You need to use the things you're learning in English class to do well in this assignment. Those kinds of things you will lose points for. The next thing I want you to include in your email is something to the effect of, please forward this email to Mr. Backus at, and then I want you to put my email address here, but don't type it in. You should be able to right click and hit paste if you haven't copied anything else since we grabbed my email address from the staff webpage. If you have, it's okay. Just go ahead and um, go back to the web page and copy it again. So please forward this email to Mr. Backus at michael.backus@matsuk12.us so that I can get credit for this assignment. At the very end of your email, it's important to have consider it a nice closing. So we're going to say something like, generally speaking, you would say something like, thanks, or thank you for your time. But since your parents, we're not really thanking them, we're just informing them of how you're doing in my class, you can type something like, see you later. Or maybe you want to say something like, have a nice day. Your choice. Something polite. It's very important that we go the extra mile when we're communicating using email to be as polite as possible, because it's very easy to misinterpret emails. And if you don't make that extra effort, sometimes people might think you're being curt or standoffish, and you don't want that to happen. Once you've made your email, do not click the send button. You need to attach a QR code. In order to get the QR code for this assignment, you need to go back to my webpage. So matsuk12.us/Backus. And you're going to click on Evaluate Project. And then you're going to click on Email. And then you're going to have to do a self-evaluation. I'm going to split screen this so that we can see what we're evaluating. I'll drag this down, and then I'm going to grab right here and drag it all the way to the side, and you can see how the outline looks like it's taking up half the screen. Now it'll snap to half the screen, and I can go over here and grab my email. So now I can look at this, and I can make sure I've done everything I'm supposed to do. Parent guardian email is in the to field. Yes, I got my parent's email in the to field right behind to. So I can say yes to that. Mr. Backus's email is in the CC field. Yep. Appropriate subject line, grammatically correct, it has all the information it needs. Email starts with a courteous beginning. That's this piece right here. Email communicates current grade. Okay, so I have communicated my grade. That's this piece right here. The message shares something learned or ways to improve my grade. Now, because I had a lower grade, I put in 2 things I can do to improve my grade. The message includes a request to forward this email so that you can get credit for it. Okay, that's this piece right here. Now the message is grammatically correct. Grammarly saying it is, but at this point you should read through it carefully and make sure that you didn't make any typos, that you've done your absolute best job. If you have, you'll get 5 points for that. Now this part, these are free points. You just have to be careful what you do. A lot of people, when they compose emails, they like to change all kinds of things. They might highlight this part, and maybe they want to do some italics, or they want to change the color of it, and just do all kinds of crazy things that generally make the email harder to read. Don't do those things. If you do, you're going to lose points here. So if you just didn't change any of that, you're good. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this stuff and put it back the way it was so that I can give myself those points.
And I'm also going to look to make sure that I didn't use any sort of slang or emojis or abbreviations. You especially don't want to type in all caps because that's construed as yelling. So if I had something that looked like this at the end of my email, or if I inserted an emoji like this, let's see here, I could put in a bell. That kind of stuff, it's just not real professional. So when you're doing academic emails, don't include this. If you're sending it to your friend, that's perfectly okay, but you don't want to be sending that to your teacher or to an employer or a potential employer. Okay, so because I didn't do any of that, I can say my email is professional. It ends with a courteous closing. That would be this piece right here. And it ends with your name, the signature part, that's this here. And actually my whole signature is this piece right here. And then a snapshot of the signature settings is attached to the email. Now this part I forgot to do. It's a good thing I went through this self-evaluation. To include that snapshot, I'm going to click on the paperclip here. And now I can see the signature. This allows me to attach an email or attach an image to my email that doesn't actually show up in the email. You can see I don't see the image here. It's just this little thing right here that says it's been attached. Okay, so now I can say that that is done. Once I've checked all of these, I can go ahead and hit submit. Now I need to find a peer evaluator. That person is going to have to come over and sit next to me, or we're going to have to sit next to each other so that they can see this email before I click the send button. Once I've gotten a peer evaluation, my screen should look something like this. You can see now I've got a perfectly passing peer evaluation here. Right click on the QR code that shows up and hit Save Image As. And we're going to put it in our pictures and call it Email QR. Hit Save. And then we can minimize this and open up a File Explorer. Go to your pictures. And you can see that you have the email QR code right here. To get that QR code in the right spot, you need to go to the very end of your signature. And see how my cursor is right here at the very end? To make sure that the QR code shows up below this, I'm going to hit enter one time, and now I can see my cursor is below the signature. And then I can actually drag this QR code into the email. And it shows up below everything. This will make grading your assignments go much, much faster for me. So make sure you do it this way. Otherwise, I'm just going to have you redo it. Once you've got your QR code in your email, you can go ahead and click the send button.